Hello, I'm Charlene, aka the Rainbow Frequency, and Spirit has another prompt of a conversation that has been rattling around in my head that needs to come out. I am a psychic channel. I communicate information to people, whether it's one-on-one or in these forums, to help people transmute their pain into abundance. I help people process their situations and therefore transmute what holds them back into healing and forward movement in their lives. So I am oftentimes prompted by Spirit to share my own personal experiences so that if they resonate, it can be that initiation point to help you let go of whatever it is that's holding you back. I am in part very empathetic. We'll start at the beginning. I was created by two people who had a lot of suffering mentally, emotionally, physically within their lives. My mother had PTSD my mother had PTSD, period. Then, when she was carrying me, I absorbed is how they want to say it. I remember reading when I was pregnant that the emotional state of the mother could have effect on how the child came into the world. So if you're very depressed while you're pregnant, you could have a child that's more melancholy, for example. Especially, in my case, being empathetic. So, very much had to, in my life, learn to be an empowered empath, which means to have healthy boundaries, not go around absorbing everything from the environment, the people that I'm around, as though it's mine. We're not here to do the heavy lifting for those around us. We're supposed to teach them how to fish, so to speak, so that they can do it for themselves. You're not supposed to go absorbing other people's karma. It's just as a healer, whatever capacity you are, it isn't your job to heal the other person. You are there to help them facilitate perhaps the methodology or the concepts to help themselves heal. I came into this world having a bit of PTSD. I then, experienced things in my childhood that reinforced this anxiety. Again, I wasn't aware till much later that I was empathetic. I know looking back, it makes so much sense because in high school, unless I had a friend to go with me, I couldn't go places like the post office. I still don't really love to go to places where there's a lot of hostility within them. It's not comfortable. But I've learned, Spirit prompted me once when I was going into a large event, because I don't even like being in large groups of people usually. I'm changing that, luckily. But when I first did a First Friday event here in Richmond, which is a lot of people out and about, Spirit led me to imagine that I wrapped myself in bubble wrap so that I was a little bit more insulated. Typically, I will imagine that I'm in this crystalline sphere or bubble, similar to, if you're familiar with it, Glinda the Good Witch from Wizard of Oz, so that I'm not overly defensive, but I'm shielded to deflect what isn't in my highest good, transmute what I can to shift the energy, because they're having me share with you. I am also a shapeshifter. Now, while I wish I could change into a porcupine at will or anything else in the animal or magical creature spectrum, as of yet, I haven't learned that one in this lifetime. But it does mean that I can help shift the energy of people, places, things, that's part of my ability as an energy healer to transmute. I started off in my first career, professionally speaking, I started off, the first thing as an ADH young person, I struggled a lot with trying to find environments to thrive in for work. And I was an English major in college, couldn't imagine myself, doing anything in a professional sphere. So I dropped out of college. I found waiting tables, and I loved it. I could talk to people all day long. I really love to be of service. It's a part of my makeup. I had to learn, again, as an empowered empath, to do it professionally, not within personal relationships. I had to recognize, I love fixing things. So I have to help those who wish to fix themselves. If you try to help someone who's not interested, it's like trying to save a drowning person. It will just drain you. It's a waste of your words and energy because they're not interested. Much like addiction. The person has to want to let go of the addiction for themselves. It's not going to work otherwise. So anyway, I was waiting tables. That's where I first started realizing how good I was with people, how, they would come in once and they'd come back and I'd remember what they liked to drink, I could slip into their energy easily. They were thinking about what they needed in a very open way, so then I could facilitate being of service to them. And then I shifted from there to being a hairstylist because I had a friend, I was kind of getting depressed. I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew that I loved waiting tables, but I should do more with my brain because it was kind of freaky how much I remembered about everyone. And so then a friend of mine was like, I think you should do hair. I could see you doing rock star people hair. And I was just like, My grandmother was a hairstylist. I grew up as a baby in a crib in a hair salon. Never had I ever thought about doing hair. But it just clicked of well, shit. I've always enjoyed doing my own hair. Once in middle school, I cut my friend's hair because she wasn't happy with her hair, and I didn't get in trouble. Her mom was very vocal New Yorker, would have ripped me a new one if she felt the need to, and she didn't. So, it's I grew up outside of Lynchburg, Virginia in Forest. So I had many a moment where things went tragically awry with my hair. I tried to have the Winona Ryder pixie cut, and I came out of the salon looking like a Manchichi or a fuzzy chicken from hell. Every bit of my hair, having Spanish lineage and Native American lineage, when it's too short, so I had to after crying, look at myself, what can I do to fix this? And I started texturizing or chopping at my hair because we didn't know in the 90s about texturizing. So I fixed it. And then I wound up, doing my own hair for many years. So then I started doing hair, and it really sated me for a really long time because it was something where I got to work with people, I got to be of service. I recognized behind the chair slowly but surely what else was happening. I had, in my youth, wanted to be a psychotherapist. And then I told myself I couldn't be a psychotherapist because, one, I thought I'd be too mean. I thought I would call some people out in a way that they wouldn't enjoy, and that I didn't really fit that world very well. I also knew that it would emotionally wreak havoc on me because when I wasn't feeling like ripping people how did that want to come out? When I wasn't calling people out on their bad behavior and telling them to shift their perspective, I would be consumed with their grief and it would debilitate me. So, I didn't know that there was an option to not be affected in that way, and that sometimes people need to hear it in a certain way because otherwise they won't listen. Anyway, I digress. So I, was a hairstylist for many years. It became very clear to me very early on that I had no desire to make you look like anyone else or to feed insecurities. I wanted to help you feel comfortable in your own skin. I wanted to work with what your hair naturally wanted to do instead of fighting it. And then I started realizing that psychic information was coming through me. I remember at one point saying, I didn't know that before, so that must be your information. Before I really acknowledged that I was a channel and that was in fact what was happening. I started knowing when people weren't going to show up, all sorts of things. I started recognizing as I was getting Reiki that there was energy healing taking place, that I remember getting really uncomfortable towards the end of me working professionally as a hairstylist, that I was in a large salon group with lots of different stylists of different energies and life focuses. And, here I was having clients come to me and we're having really deep conversations. It was starting to feel uncomfortable to have such deep conversations around other people. I also noticed that I would shift very much from person to person, and I was worried that my coworkers would think I was nuts. I was vilifying it. And then I realized later, no, as a channel, as someone who's deeply empathetic, I shift into the energy of who I'm working with, to a certain degree. You never want to lose yourself in the other person or change out of your authentic self, but at the same time, I'm multifaceted, I am very adaptable, so I can shift to meet you to where we have shared resonance. Instead of people pleasing and knowing what people want and giving them something that's not authentic, that's just trying to people please, be perfect, overgive. I had a deep wound ancestrally about using my gifts, past life wound about using my gifts and not having it go awry, having people persecute me or be jealous of it, all sorts of weird shit. Pardon my French. So I also had a deep wound of feeling valuable, valuing myself. As I progressed to being an empowered empath, I had to learn to really prioritize myself, self-care, not needing to find my value in what I made monetarily, 2019, in that salon group I was just speaking of, I was really starting to get depressed again because I wanted to change how I was being of service to being more deeply personal. I really was starting to want to get more spiritual. It just took me a while to recognize that. I started practicing divination for myself when I was 15. I started channeling spirit cognizantly, but uncognizantly or unaware when I started writing as a youth. So, I started pretty early on with this connection. It just took me a really long time to really recognize it as more than just something that helped keep me sane. And I then, in 2019, decided that I wanted to open up my own salon again with a friend, and I was going to have a room where I was going to come out of the spiritual closet and let my clients know that I also did tarot. I was starting to study Reiki because I had recognized I was an energy healer, and instead of doing it unintentionally with people, I wanted to know what I was doing and do it with intention. So, I was really scared. I was afraid I'd lose all my clientele. Again, that fear of being a witch or being perceived as a witch and being persecuted or not liked for it. It was very deep. And then we had everything happen in 2020 that then completely upended my plans. I had at one point said, if I could work from home and be in my garden all day, I would love that, but I never saw that as being a possibility. So then 2020 happened. All of a sudden, I couldn't do hair. I couldn't see people one-on-one in person. And it really brought into focus my fear of if I didn't make a certain amount of money, I wasn't valuable. I had a lot of my identity tied up in being the provider for my family. So all of a sudden that was ripped away from me, and it accelerated my progress on my spirituality and my spiritual path of doing it professionally, because all of a sudden I had no choice. Like, I had never thought that I would do Reiki online. I thought I would see people in person. I also thought it would be quiet when I did it. Ha! Never have I been quiet, ever. I used to vilify that in myself. As a child, I deeply wished to be quiet and mysterious. Why we want to be something that we're not? Well, look at your Black Moon Lilith. Look at your Chiron placements. That's why. But I had to get over those deep wounds of not feeling valuable, of fearing expressing what wanted to be expressed through me, that it wasn't taboo, that my esoteric, mystical nature was not forbidden. It was a God-given, or it was a gift. Anyway, channeling feels a lot like Wild Toad's Ride, of I just have to let it flow out of me, not try to over micromanage it. So forgive me if I have to where am I? So then 2020, all of a sudden it was just okay, get out of your comfort zone, start telling people you do this. I then started a YouTube channel, and again, I had a huge fear of being seen, of being persecuted for expressing this part of myself. So in 2020, it's just Spirit was just nope, get on YouTube, get on these social media platforms, because where do people go when they're suffering? A lot of people go to the internet. They will escape and find comfort through, in a healthy way, things that bring them joy, things that uplift them. I personally saw myself getting rid of anything in my Instagram account, for example, that would stress me out or that didn't bring me joy. So, when I was really struggling for a while there, it was really only photographers who photographed nature, people who were gardeners, people who were very uplifting. And I've gotten to where I don't need to be so gentle with myself, and I can have more of an array of people's feelings coming into my feed, but at the same time, I don't absorb it. If it feels ick, then woo, outside of my garden gate, thank you. You shield and protect yourself and your own peace so that you don't have that disrupted. You can be an observer, and a lot of times when there's something out there in the world, I send love to it. I send healing, supportive energy to help shift it, and then done my job to a certain, you can't get all consumed in things that aren't yours to fix. So in those situations, you send love, you send supportive energy, soul to soul, and then you release yourself to what you are able to fix, or what you're able to do in your own life. So then, so I started doing a YouTube channel. At first, it was just my hands and the cards, and my hands would shake because I was so nervous. And then slowly but surely, they're like, no, get in front of the camera. Now stop giving a rat's hind parts about what they think of you. You know, at first I was like, really? You want me to sing and dance? What the holy heck is this? I feel so uncomfortable, and people are going to think I'm ridiculous. And then I had to really study what it meant to be a spiritual healer, to be a shaman, a heyoka, whatever it is that you want to call it. I had to really recognize that since the dawn of time, people have come together, they've sung and danced as a part of their healing rituals. They showed me in a vision once a dinosaur singing, like an aquatic sort of brontosaurus singing in this lagoon, and that since the dawn of time, birds, whales, dinosaurs, what have you, have been singing to help transmute energy and help the world heal. So get over myself and be proud of the song and the beat that came through, and that, you know, first they had me stomp the beat, then they were like, okay, now drum, sing, stomp it all together now, which I learned quickly. I'm no Britney Spears, so I had to record it so that I could then just dance to it. Because, woo, you know, maybe when I'm 80, I'll be able to do it all. And you'll be like, woo, she's amazing. But at the moment, piece by piece, step by step. So, you know, okay, going currently, I've recognized, you know, so we previously had Chiron in Aries, which was all about looking at the deep wounds you have regarding yourself, letting go of them so that you can be more authentic in your own body and your own self-expression. Chiron moving into Taurus is all about looking at those deep wounds of feeling valued. My Chiron is in Taurus, so I'm having my Chiron return, which is usually around 50. I'm 48 and a half, so I'm damn close. So again, it's like recognizing, like, all right, I'm deep in the mix of, I've processed my deep wounds of self. I've been processing my deep wounds of self and helping heal myself through them. I'm learning to express myself truthfully. Again, my Black Moon Lilith is in Gemini, so it's a fear of expressing and communicating, of being judged for the way I think. You know, my whole life, I've had, before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I was told I was a spaz that wouldn't amount to anything. I was immature, all these horrible things, but really it was just, the school system needs reforming. You know, we're not meant to sit like little factory workers and do it all the same way. It's hilarious because when I was little, before like ADHD and ADD were really prevalent in the school system, I was put in a cubicle because they're like, okay, well, maybe if we put her by herself, she won't talk to anyone and she'll do her work. Nope. I talked to myself. You know, I drew pictures. I remember I actually like started talking to the teacher's aide, and like I started really helping her with her own issues, and I was in 3rd grade. So, you know, when you're so little, it's not usually well received, you being this old wise soul that can like tap into people's emotions to get to their wounds and help them address them, you know. So I quickly recognized, like, oh, this isn't going over well, so I shut it down. Then, you know, luckily as a hairstylist, it was reactivated because it was people coming to me and talking to me about their situations and wanting me to help them. So this is all going to be current and telling you, like, I recently realized I'm still policing myself a lot, wanting to make sure that it came out right, that it was something that would be well received. I had to learn to dial back my ego when channeling with people, because I'd even say to them, like, I don't want to say this to you, but this is the message, so we're going to say it. And they're like, yes, say it. And it always landed well, thankfully. And it was just like, all right, as a channel, it's my responsibility to give the person the message. I don't need to police it or overly filter it to make sure that you're comfortable. Yes and no. I mean, as a channel, it is your responsibility to give the message through your heart space, so with compassion and love. But sometimes you need to give the person tough love. Sometimes it needs to be firm. You know, it just depends on the person and how they need to hear it so that it will best impact them, is what I found. You know, I've really still been processing the deep wounds I have around my self-worth. And, you know, I was in a relationship when all this was going on that both helped push me this direction, and then I made the person very uncomfortable when I decided I was going to give up a career that was very lucrative to pursue something that I felt the calling within my soul. You know, they tried to convince me that that wasn't wise and that I should still continue to do hair because that was the bread and butter, and like, how could I put my family in jeopardy like this? And, you know, I had to not listen. And, I had to listen in part, but then at the same time have faith in what I was feeling, have learned to have faith in myself, have faith in the connection, have faith in what I was here to do. So it's been this whole building of faith. And even still, I'm a single mother again, and I have a huge anxiety over providing for my family and not feeling like it's working if I'm not monetarily very successful, which is silly, because really it isn't about the external, it's about the internal gratification or internal satisfaction and fulfillment. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I'm getting to do. I love meeting with people in this way. It exhilarates me, and it's in the being myself with people and us being able to connect in this way that lights me up and is the gold. I have to then stop overly beating myself up. You know, I did a career change at 40 something. So, you know, it takes time. I had to, instead of constantly being that taskmaster that's like, next, more. You know, I had to learn to like slow myself down, be very present in the fact that I am grateful for the amazing experiences and opportunities that I've had. Spirit has taken what was super scary to me and so anxiety-inducing, that fear of being seen, the fear of truthfully expressing my gifts, and it's been celebrated, and I've been given opportunities to be around people who the interaction with them has been deeply healing. Like, I've met, like the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts hired me several years back to be one of the tarot readers at the Willie Ann Wright exhibition. Willie Ann Wright, a short blurb on her. Amazing woman, studied at William Mary, both psychology and art. And so when she had her exhibition, and then the next year they did a 100-year birthday party event for her as well, so I got to be at both. I then, because a lot of her psychology friends were in town, got to meet with them and read for them, and that was hugely, well, one, a state-run organization hiring a tarot reader felt like a huge, woo, we did it! We're accepted! This is big! And then to have the psychological world start to want to talk to me and validate what I was doing felt amazing and like such a huge progress. This year, I've gotten to speak at the University of Richmond in front of the psychology department to the trainees and some of the faculty to express to them what I've come up with as energy self-care basics. And they received that very well, and I got amazing feedback. So it's just been these amazing opportunities to meet with people that I previously felt wouldn't accept me, and to have, by me being willing to be my true authentic self and bravely show the world what I've got, it's been validated, it's been supported, it's been appreciated. But again, that's the icing on the cake. I had to do it for myself first. I had to feel that for myself first, then be excited about the external. I mean, again, I've been working on that still, because I'm still like, okay, while I love the reviews that people have given me, again, first and foremost, focus on what you feel for yourself, then look externally for that gratification and validation. I had to shift my perspective of like, all right, we're in a bad economy. You're a single mother, and while you are doing it month to month, you're doing it. So that's good job, girl. Instead of beating myself up, I had to then, instead of going into feeding that anxiety and self-doubt loop, I had to like, all right, I recognize I'm PMSing. I recognize that my anxiety and my insecurities are being ratcheted up. Now let's, instead of feeding that, look back over the last, I've been working on myself for several decades now. So, I mean, I can go back several decades and be like, go ahead, girl, you did that. You did that. What would have sunk other people, and they would have gotten bitter and not gotten out of that swamp of despair. You kept it going. So hurrah, huzzah. You've come a long way, and you're building something for yourself that has a stable foundation of connections that are deeply meaningful, and creating something that really, a part of my mission is to really change how the world views esoteric arts and people who do work like I do. Instead of calling us woo-woo and kind of dismissing it or like degrading it, we're in a period where we are having a renaissance of spirituality. We are getting to really personally and culturally reshape how we think, how we holistically care for ourselves. We already have, in my lifetime, really started to better understand mental illness. We started to understand that our emotional health is important. We've learned to value, slowly but surely, our emotions. We recognize that whole statement, we are what we eat, really is true. Our gut health is very much a part of our emotional well-being. We're entering a time where we're really starting to understand how much it ill affects us to be constantly stressed out. We're starting to recognize that it isn't all about survival at all costs. It's really a time where we're learning to regulate our nervous systems, take care of the adrenal fatigue, the compassion fatigue. We're learning that self-care is a must, not just something that we might get to perhaps if we get everything else done. So it's a very amazing time that we're in, and you have the opportunity to look at yourself, your fears, your insecurities, the patterns and behaviors and let go of the narratives that aren't even really how you feel and think. Let go of the ancestral trauma that's keeping you from being your best self and doing what your ancestors didn't have the ability to do for themselves. We're line breakers, we're way showers. We're here to really help at this point in time revolutionize how we think, how we live, how we come together. Amen. Regardless of religion. Like, yes, let's do this. So I hope you enjoyed this rambling. I'm going to stop saying that because I'm not rambling. I am channeling, which really feels quite wild, but I'm channeling you information that Spirit has really prompted me that would be helpful to some of you. So I hope it is helpful to some of you. If you'd like to work with me, I do so in person or online with equal effectivity. English is not my first language, but I don't know yet what is. I think light language is my first language. I work through a lot of different ways to help you energetically accept yourself for who you are, let go of the wounds or the blockages. I do so through shamanic Reiki, like hand placements. I work through card readings a lot of times because it's a verbal and visual way to journey through the subconscious, to process those wounds, to recollect the parts of yourself that you need to connect with the higher realms. And I do so through astrology, because by looking at your cosmic design, you can better know like what the lessons you came here to work through are, what your gifts are, how you meet and engage with the world. Everyone I've done their chart for has said, including myself, that it's eerily accurate. I find it very cathartic. A lot of times people, when I do events and do tarot readings, they have never had a reading and they're very fearful. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you something bad. I'm going to tell you something perhaps that's cathartic. A lot of people will cry with me, but it's in a good way. So, food for thought. If you feel called to work with me or someone like me, we're here to help you be empowered to have faith in what you already are feeling for yourself. Like if I touch on something within a reading or whatever I'm doing with you that you've been thinking or working on, I'm like, yes, that's it. That's why you come to me. I might tell you other things that you haven't thought about, but really it's to help you have that confirmation with your own inner knowing and to have faith in tuning into it and following. I also do workshops. I do a lot of energy self-care and like moving meditative sort of stuff because again, Spirit has led me to sing and dance and to use movement as how I connect. So if you'd like to work with me, I'm here. If not, no biggie. Anyway, best wishes. Be well holistically for yourself and the world you're a beautiful part of. And one little last thing. This is prayer position by some people's standards. It's something that you can do to activate your heart chakra and also bring the hemispheres of your brain and the sides of your body together. You can be in this position and do some breath work. You can also do heart and soul, so heart chakra, solar plexus. This is what I call the thunder jacket. You can do breath work that way, and it's a way to connect to your heart and soul, to connect to that heart center, to regulate stress. I would do breath work. Perhaps if you're feeling anxious, breathe in for 4, hold it for 7 counts, exhale for 8. Then I like to move for myself into box breathing, You can do this with whatever number you want, but say you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold it for 4 counts, you exhale for 4 counts. Then I like to then again hold for 4, because a box is 4 sides, not 3. And I will then slowly progress how long, or the number, how long I breathe in and exhale, so that we can move out of shallow breathing, which a lot of us, when we're stressed, we breathe shallowly, to help expand our breath, so that you fully inhale and fully exhale. Don't rush it, don't force it, do it as it feels natural to extend. So best wishes, all the love. Go get 'em, Tigers. You came here divinely designed, so learn who you are, what you are, and how you're designed, so that you can do it with intention and grace.